Escape room employees. What's the least successful escape attempt that you've ever seen? A few years ago, my office decided to do a team building event at a local escape room. It was one of those everyone loves puzzles and teamwork ideas, and most of the department was on board. I tagged along even though I'm not super into that kind of thing, mostly because I wanted to see my coworkers try to act competitive in a harmless setting. We got there, and the staff explained the rules and gave us the briefing. The group was divided into 2 teams, and one team, which included my coworker Brian, who had a reputation for overthinking everything, was assigned to the elevator-themed room. I remember thinking the elevator concept was kind of cool. They had this old service-style elevator that moved slightly and had hidden compartments. Everything about it was designed to make it feel like you were trapped, but in a controlled, safe way. As soon as Brian's team stepped in, things started going wrong. The elevator didn't move the way it was supposed to, and the group froze. They spent at least 15 minutes debating whether this was part of the game. They didn't touch the emergency button because they were convinced that pressing it would somehow ruin the authentic experience, or disqualify them. Brian immediately took the lead in analyzing the situation. He went through every crack, every panel, and every tiny detail in the elevator. He was pacing back and forth, muttering about hidden mechanisms and secret buttons. The other 3 people in the team started to mirror his intensity, double-checking things he had already inspected, and occasionally disagreeing on which panel might be a clue. It was like a feedback loop of indecision. The temperature inside the elevator started rising. They had cranked the heat for ambiance and no one was moving much. About 10 minutes in, Brian started to panic. He leaned back against the wall, fanning himself with his hands, and then suddenly decided to take off his shirt. He claimed it would make him cooler and more agile for solving the puzzles. The others didn't comment at first, just kept debating whether the light switch on the wall might hide something or if the floor panels were loose. Meanwhile, one of the quieter team members tried to suggest they press the emergency button. "It's probably safe," they said. Brian immediately shut that down. He was convinced that the escape room staff had designed some sort of reverse psychology challenge, and pressing it would disqualify them or worse. For another 20 minutes, they continued to argue over whether certain features were real clues or just part of the set design. The staff eventually called to check if they were going to start on time for the next group. That's when panic escalated further. Brian was sweating, pacing, shirtless, and talking faster than anyone else could follow. The others were now caught between trust Brian and maybe this is actually dangerous if we keep ignoring the emergency button. Eventually, the staff told them they needed outside help. The fire department had to be called to open the elevator. By the time the firefighters arrived, the team had been trapped for nearly an hour. Brian was muttering about how he would have solved it if they had just given him more time and faith. The others were mostly quiet, embarrassed and exhausted, some leaning against the walls, trying to calm themselves down. When they were finally freed, the group shuffled back to the lobby. Brian refused to acknowledge that pressing the emergency button would have solved everything in 5 seconds. The staff explained gently that there was never any hidden consequence for using it. It was part of safety protocol, and nothing in the design was meant to trick participants into panicking. The team was in disbelief, and a few people had to take a moment to breathe and recover from the stress. Back at work the next day, the incident became office legend. Team building events were quietly put on hold for a while, and nobody mentioned the elevator incident to management. We all still joke about naked Brian in the elevator, and it's a story that comes up whenever someone suggests another escape room. Every time I think about it, I can't help laughing at how a perfectly simple, harmless team exercise turned into what can only be described as a low-stakes, chaotic thriller. Even months later, the image of Brian pacing shirtless, flustered, and overthinking every detail of a safe, controlled elevator still comes to mind whenever someone talks about overcomplicating things.